journey down the path's mosaic.
Bonjour, merhaba, and namaste. Welcome to the Usual NPCs. I am your effervescent game master, Tony Brett. I am joined by one of the members of our cast of genuinely high gravity yielding players. Player, please give your greetings unto the fabulous listeners.
So my name is John. Super good to be here. Super good to be here with you. I'm excited to play. It's going to be a good time.
Good. I'm happy to hear. So, basically, what we're going to be doing here today is you can ask a couple questions, feel free to, about the world. We're going to go into D&D Beyond and build the majority of your character.
Amazing.
Then we're going to ask and answer some questions about the story that you want to tell through your character. And then after that, we're going to wrap up with you rolling up your 6 core stats.
Okay, that sounds good. I will have to get my really good dice then. But yeah, I'm excited. So, questions. I've got one for you.
Yeah, go for it.
So, I think a little bit, about Levi is just, we'll get more into it, but Levi's a kid, right? He's 19, so he's basically still a child, even though he's legally an adult. But I think that because of certain things in his background, he's trying to navigate the world and trying to wrestle with his understanding of the meaning of life and the meaning of death. And I think the meaning of life...
I just want to note, so far this is not a question.
That's fair. So I've got things to say about, the life stuff. But as far as death goes, what is the place of death in this world? What are the belief systems around what happens when you die? Maybe the significance of death? This is a big question, but I think it's going to be important for my understanding and how I roleplay a little bit to know some of this information.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this is one where the answer is pretty straightforward. Basically, in this universe, in this world, the only afterlife that anyone knows about is Dowdheim, the place that was opened to everyone, where the hell winds come from and all that.
Okay.
So, the common tradition is to actually burn bodies, to cremate, effectively, often with bigger funeral pyres, things like that, as a way to give one last bout of warmth to the soul as it transitions to Dowdheim. There's actually a sort of superstition, maybe it's true, that the bodies that don't get burnt, that are just left buried under the snow even, are the souls that come back as the Draugr, or the zombie equivalent of the world.
Yeah.
So that's one where most likely if you have a relationship with death and with those funeral rites, it's probably very important to you that any mortal characters that die get cremated, because the fear of someone coming back as Draugr and having to live that eternal time
Right.
as a mindless undead, is pretty rough.
Okay. And then, I guess follow-up question to that. So, my understanding then is that death for basically no one is a pleasant thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So,
Okay.
as far as the mortal population is aware, the best possible scenario for the life after death, the afterlife, is being conscious and being just
Cold.
existing, generally meandering around Dowdheim.
Okay.
There isn't really a good there isn't a heaven, right?
Right.
Or equivalent to in this world. It's just you die and either are a mindless zombie suffering forever, or you die and get to just kind of meander around with all the generations of dead that aren't Draugr.
Okay, gotcha. So one last question, and kind of following this line of thinking. Um, when it comes to people being resurrected or saved from dying, who maybe have like a revivify, right? Where, okay, it's been within a few minutes, revivify, you're back. For those, is there a place of that magic in this world? Do we know anything about the people that have experienced that? If so, or is that a completely just not a thing in this setting?
So it's highly frowned upon
Okay.
because either the body is burnt so that you can have a natural death, or they're left as Draugr, at which point you are purposefully taking them from that state of suffering and bringing them back into their body. And usually, when people come back from that, it's a pretty traumatic
Okay.
experience. So it's viewed as kind of a mean, cruel thing to take someone who has that knowledge, that experience of a miserable, painful undeath, and bringing them back into consciousness with that. It's thought to better to leave them in that state of suffering, because that state of suffering seems to be from the few people that have been brought back, one that is relatively mindless.
Okay.
As long as you aren't conscious of it, I guess it's not too bad, is the thought
Right.
process. Now, this might be a complete misunderstanding, but that's the general idea among the minds of mortals.
Okay. So it would be like a painful experience if you were conscious of it. And so, like, the being dead in Daudheim, is that correct?
Yep. Daud Heim.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, being in Daudheim is, I forget, like, it's, I mean, I know some medicines, instead of just anesthesia where you're put to sleep, it's like you have, you're basically awake for the procedure, except that you just don't remember anything. Except if you were to be woken up, you would remember everything, and that would be very bad. That's
That
what it
that
sounds
yes,
like.
that is the common understanding.
Okay.
Is very much, it's a, hey, at least while you're dead, you're not really noticing that you're dead because you aren't really in a fully mindful state.
Hmm.
When you're a Draugr,
Yeah.
I should clarify. Um, that way, when you're brought back, you experience that loss of agency. You experience that freezing, biting cold. You experience all of that retroactively, effectively through your memory.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. I think.
That sounds good, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that doesn't sound amazing, but the lore information sounds all good. So,
Cool.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course, of course. I'm surprised no one asked anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like when, I mean, we hear in kind of the typical stereotypical Norse mythologies about some sort of um, great dinner or great feast, the
Hmm.
Valhalla. I
Yep.
didn't know if there was anything like that in this world, or if it was a little bit more bleak. And knowing you just a little bit, I figured it was going to be a little bit more bleak, and I was right. So
I do love my big
yeah.
downers in my stories and worlds.
Fair enough. Cool. Well, I think that's it for me. Yeah,
Okay, if you'd like to pull up the campaign in D&D Beyond and
absolutely.
start taking us through character creation, tell me why you're choosing, what you're thinking, what you're feeling as you're going about it, your race, your class, etc.
Sure. All right. So, I wanted to do something that was kind of fairly standard and closer to home, mainly because I wanted to have a role playing experience playing a young kid who is in between that stage of being a teenager and being, or in that stage of being a teenager, growing into being an adult. I think in real life, that kind of stage is difficult oftentimes, and there's a lot of change, and there's a lot of things where you're trying to retain, kind of the fleeting childhood, but at the same time being told that you have to become an adult now. But there's so many things that are new and changing and figuring out that it's a difficult time. And so I wanted to play a character that was kind of in the middle of that. Um, for that reason, I figured human was probably the safe way to go. Nothing crazy, no variant human, just straight, plus ones across the board human. Um, yeah, and I liked that thought. Now, as far as class goes, um, I'm a big sucker for warlocks.
Aren't we all?
Aren't we all? But here's the thing I wanted to discuss with you is that I feel like that in my character's backstory, how the little bits of coming from a place of being like a wall guard, a guard on the wall, and just kind of not being good at that, and having to abandon post to find some way, whether it being kind of unwise to do this, but abandoning post to try and find a more significant, quick form of income for his family. His mother disappeared in an engagement with undead. Didn't die, but disappeared. Maybe she died. Who knows? But his father is a blacksmith who is slowly going blind. And so his family's having to take care of him while trying to sustain their own families and such.
I wonder if I may,
Yeah.
if there's any potential trauma associated with knowing that your mother could be dead, and likely, if she did die out fighting, Draugr out at a gate, there's a good possibility that she herself never ended up getting funeral pyred, cremated. There we go.
Yeah.
That's the word.
I think that there absolutely would be that fear. I think it's a note that like Levi doesn't necessarily like undead as just one of the things that I've written in, but I think in this setting that makes a lot of sense, that he's scared of that great beyond and kind of the hopelessness of it. Levi's also an extremely naively positive person, to the point where it's almost and sometimes to a detriment, where if he can't find the silver lining in something, it ends up being a very bad time for him. Even when maybe grounding yourself in that moment would be better overall. Anyways, so the difficult thing that I'm finding with this character is I think that he makes both a good paladin and a warlock candidate. And of course, Hexblade, warlock, paladin, those kind of go hand in hand. But, knowing like the complexity with some of the gods and things like that, I find like the pathway walking that, like, what would Levi start out with, right? Would it be kind of a personal devotion and pact to, go out into the world and find out what happened to his mother to provide, for his family? Or is it, like, well, I'm going to take power from something, or maybe something comes to him and offers that power. He's not necessarily good with a spear, so him doing the adventuring thing is actually quite dumb. But I almost like the idea that there's like something involved, an intervention of some kind from some other force that affects it. I don't know which way to land on that for like level 1.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the long term, I think we have a really good answer for this, because built into 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, there's some sort of weird option to have multiple classes. A sort of multi
Classy multis, yeah,
Yeah,
I've
something
heard about
like that. So
Absolutely.
I think in the long term we can absolutely dip into both and have a great time with that.
Absolutely.
There are really good reasons to go either way for the first level.
Yeah.
And we could run it either as you tell me how you want to really start and we kind of go from there, or you just 50-50 it, flip a coin on it.
Yeah.
And we go that way as far as what type of force is reaching out to you first.
Yeah. I think that there's an element, I don't know much about the other players, but I have a suspicion that we're probably not dealing with a lot of hit people in the face types. So I'm not sure if you're okay with this, but there's a small part of like tactical playing the game part of me that's like, maybe we should lean into paladin for that first level, and then maybe it's that secondary force of the warlock classes that kind of come into play afterwards.
I am totally cool with that. I do want to let you know
Mm-hmm.
that at the end of the day, right,
Yep.
I will make any party composition work.
Yep.
100%, I will make it work. If I need to make it work by having a bunch of weirdly squishy liches that have counterspell like a million times, I will do so.
Okay.
So don't be too concerned about it. Go for what you think is more fun first. But if you're split either way, then yeah, sure, a pally with some party comp.
Great. I'm going wizard. Uh, no, yeah.
Make sure to grab silvery barbs and bees.
Yep. All right. That sounds good. Bees? Bees?
Bee. Yeah.
Bees?
Ask Jaime about the bees.
Okay, that sounds good. Uh, no, yeah. I think I will go paladin. Just because I do like the idea that at least he's we can maybe talk in more detail about what that personal like devotion, that personal like promise looks like for Levi, but
I already have an idea in place, and when we get to some of the storytelling stuff, I will talk to you about that.
excellent.
Depends upon a couple things.
Okay, that sounds
I got ideas.
cool. So I will go ahead and choose that, and then I am going to just hit a few buttons here real quick. Proficiencies, I'm looking at the paladin skills, wisdom and charisma. I mean, Levi's not like the wisest kid. I think he's got like a good sense on his shoulders though. Like he's more street smart and not like, oh yeah, here's a parable. So I guess that maybe
Well, that is wisdom, yeah.
right.
Because having that more book smarts type thing, which I hate the term street smarts and book smarts,
Right.
but that's another topic for another day.
Sure.
But that book smarts thing is more the int route.
Yeah.
So that wisdom charisma seems nice.
Yeah. I think Levi is definitely someone to talk something out more, so I'm going to choose persuasion. The other skills, I know that like Levi, it comes from like being a guard on the wall, so probably athletics, intimidation. Those are the soldier background skills that I know of. But medicine, religion, I think he'd be read to some degree, maybe on some history, but those aren't necessarily skills. So I think I'm actually going to choose, of the stock ones that I have as an option here, I'm going to choose insight. I think I could see like Levi when he's like sitting down paying attention and like really thinking about something, or really trying to focus on like what somebody's saying, reading between the lines, or kind of getting the hidden message of something, whatever that may be.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're someone who's not too good at too many things like Levi is with the spear and stuff like that, it's a really good idea for them to be very observant, right? Because
Mhm.
that's how you can make your way in the world through just the social skills, is by picking up on
Yep.
cues with people and being able to communicate effectively with them. So I actually really, really like that.
Cool. I think that sounds good. So that handles the paladin stuff. I mean, divine sense level 1, that's nice. The lay on hands level 1, that's nice. And that's it for the paladin stuff. So I'm going to click on the next page. All right, so we've got ability scores here. I guess we're
We
coming
will
back to
skip that for now, yes.
All right. So background, I think I said this before. I'm going to choose soldier, just because he was the wall guard,
Mhm.
a profession that he was not good at, but he gets some of the background stuff from being a soldier, as well as the intimidation and the athletics. I almost think of Levi not necessarily being someone who likes throwing his weight around, or is necessarily massive from a strength standpoint, but at the same time is someone who is fit, right? And who
Yeah, absolutely.
Levi is, like, at the end of the day, 5'10", which is going to be a little bit taller than most other people. And so I think Levi would be smart enough to know how to superimpose himself into making himself be more persuasive in that way.
I just want to let you know with that choice of 5'10", complimenting the DM does not give you anything extra.
All right, that's fine.
Make him 5'9" so I can be taller.
Okay. You know what? Maybe he's 5'8", you know?
Ah, yes, my bolstered sense of superiority.
All right. Can I have the Holy Avenger as a weapon? Is that a thing that can happen?
For 5'7", yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, 5'7". Yeah, you got it. No, yeah. So I think for the background, that works there. I have a dice set that I've set here. I don't see anything else that's super crazy. Do you want me to talk about any other character traits? I think I touched on it a little bit, but do you have any questions for me?
So, as far as character traits per what goes on the character sheet, like flaws and things like that, that'd be maybe good to cover if you've got anything interesting there.
Yeah.
And then after that, we're going to talk about actual story beats and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think some of his flaws is, the relentlessly positive thing. Just does not allow any situation, even if it's really bitter and really terrible, just get him down. Now, in some ways, that is like, it's a good thing and a bad thing, right? So, like, he's
I guess my greatest weakness is I'm a perfectionist.
right. In some ways, it's like, hey, like, Levi's not going to stop trying until he's dead. But in the case where maybe it would be better to, like, retreat and regroup because, hey, you are in a bad situation and you need to retreat and regroup because there's not really any good from going forward. In that case, Levi might freeze. Maybe in the setting, literally. But I think that it is something that he's going to have to be careful of. Because if it is something that's everything is terrible and I can't find the silver lining, it's going to be a bad time.
Yeah. When he doesn't have a way out, he just more than anything shuts down.
Yeah. As far as like a positive character trait, Levi is trying to be very sociable and friendly with people. It is a cold, bitter world, but I think that Levi is just trying to make the best of his situation and best of his circumstances and try to make things good along the way for everyone else that's around him.
That's awesome. I like that.
He's, it's like he's just a kid. He's trying to get things figured out, but at the same time, he's trying to be as loving and caring as possible to people around him, while maybe that is a way ignoring his own stuff. Maybe that's a way that he is not really sure of his future, and that's maybe a way that he's distracting himself. But any way that you break it down, he is going to be trying to be kind to people as much as possible.
Absolutely. That's awesome. It's very awesome.
I'd say the last thing as far as like a bond, it's, hey, you've got 3 components. And I think Levi would say that he's got 2 things. I think the first one is he primarily is looking to send money home to his dad. And I think that he's just looking for a way so that he can get a very significant amount of income to his dad as quickly as possible, so he doesn't have to keep working as a blacksmith with, ever more poor eyesight. The second is find out what happened to his mother. The whole thing with that being, it's not just like, oh yeah, she probably died. It's like, she disappeared. Like, there was signs that she was involved in a scrap with her military unit, but that's it. It's just pretty much disappeared. How much of that is interference of some kind, magical strangities happening, conspiracy. I'm gonna leave that up to you. But I think that there's that mystery and just basically nothing to go off of there. So there's some sense of, well, maybe if I travel around the world, I can find something. And then the third thing, which Levi wouldn't necessarily even realize, but me as a player realizes is definitely a thing associated with the character formula that we're going for, is Levi wants to prove himself, right? He's a kid. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of choices. At the end of the day, like, Levi does want to be successful. Maybe not like looking for selfish, egotistical power, but just like to be able to go out there and be someone, right? To be good at something, I think is very important for him. And it may not come up for him until someone brings it up or he's faced with consequences that he has to kind of face those feelings head on and in some way humble himself. But I don't think at the beginning of this campaign he would even be realizing that that is a component of what he wants to be. He wants to be great to some capacity. What that ends up meaning will depend, but that is going to be an opportunity for growth for him. Maybe it will end up being like selfish, gain and fulfillment. Maybe it will be extremely selfless. Maybe it'll be in the middle, but that's going to be something that we leave up into the air for now.
Cool. Very nice, very nice. I guess in that case, I will ask, is there anything else in D&D Beyond other than obviously your 6 core stats?
Besides 6 core stats, I mean, there's equipment. I know there was some discussion about picking up items and things that may affect that, but to be honest, I'm not quite sure if I want to pick up anything that's super powerful or anything. I'm trying to think of maybe something that would be special for Levi, but maybe that will come in the form of his shield or his spear that he has later on in the campaign. I like the idea that he's pretty scrappy right now, and that's kind of he's not just randomly got some sort of artifacts. It's just he kind of sucks at fighting, and that's okay. He's not bad with a shield, I should note that. So he's decent with blocking attacks and protecting people, but as far as the spearmanship goes, not great.
So that tells us a lot of that. There is one thing that I will have you do in D&D Beyond before we get to core story for Levi,
okay,
which we've covered a lot of already.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's good. It's very, very good. So the last thing is the legendary feats, I always forget what they're called, from Mythic Odysseys of Theros.
Oh, right. Okay.
You get to pick one of those. Feel free to take a second, look through, tell me which one you're feeling.
Okay.
Tell me what you like the most, and feel free to add it to your character.
Right.
Yeah, the supernatural feats, I believe.
Supernatural gifts, it looks
supernatural
like.
Gifts. Supernatural gifts.
Right. The heroic feats. I think I am going to go for Heroic Destiny. It seems like a fun one that I'd like to add to the character. There's something about just the determination to try to find out something that's out there, I think is going to match up well with Levi.
Absolutely. Please feel free to add it to your character sheet. There's a few ways. Most people have just been adding it to the notes in their character because heroic feats D&D Beyond is a little finicky with.
Okay. Yeah, I will take a look at that, and then I will work on that as appropriate.
So then from there, we get into the question of, and this has mostly been answered, so at this point we're really mostly just getting into the nitty-gritty of the character.
Cool.
What is the kind of story you want to tell with Levi? Anything you haven't already mentioned?
Yeah. There's a lot about, becoming who you are, right? And realizing your full self. And I think a lot with there's the Warlock Pact that I'd be eyeing up is Hexblade, which is classically the best pairing, or one of the best pairings with Paladin that you can have.
Yes, but by my understanding, you, like a moron, aren't taking Eldritch Blast.
It's true. I'm not taking Eldritch Blast. Um, it's that's a challenge for me. I know it's tempting, but I think that for me, there's a lot of like this or that sort of things happening with Levi, like Paladin or Warlock. You know, father and mother, life and death. You know, hot and cold, frankly. And
Hmm.
there's kind of I'd like to really tell the story of someone just becoming who they need to be, right? Not because it's what the world is telling them. Treasure Planet soundtrack starts playing somewhere. But I mean, honestly, like that character is like a big inspiration for this. Like, if you took Captain America, oh shoot, what is that character's name from Treasure Planet? Uh,
I haven't watched Treasure Planet in over 10 years.
okay, well, you have to edit out my typing as I look this up.
Then don't talk while you type.
You have to excuse my typing or edit out my typing as I look this up. Jim Hawkins. Jim Hawkins. How did I forget that? But if you took Jim Hawkins and Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender and you know, just Captain America, and you smash them together into a 19-year-old goo, that is Levi. Um, and I think that there's a lot of cool story that you can tell where the world is pulling you in like one direction or the other, and you just kind of have to find out like who you are in the middle of it. Um, and there's a lot that we could do there, but that's kind of what like ultimately I'd like to do with the character, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh,
So then I
yeah.
guess my last main question is last question or multiple questions are all logistics. Where are you from, Levi?
Ah, right. Okay. So I know that Levi probably needs to come from a city that is walled, given that he was a wall guard. And I remember that there were two kind of good candidates for that. There was a city of magic, and then there was like another city that was highly militarized. I'm wondering if you can refresh me on those names real quick.
So there are honestly a few options. You could kind of take it in any direction.
Hmm.
One really significant option, and this is kind of a half option, half tied to other options. There is always Fort Tamning Norden.
Okay.
That is the fort that is furthest north. That is viewed as the last main defense against the forces from Dowdheim, from the various things in the woods that threaten the mortal realms. And it is primarily a military
Yeah.
outpost. That being said, if you didn't want to be that far north, any of the cities would work all right. There isn't too much of a big standing military in Sparrow's Rest, which is the magical city.
Yeah.
You do have really good options. There's a lot of military, and a lot of these soldiers are even sent up to Fort Tamning Norden. So you have a lot of options if you go to either of the two cities that lie to the west,
Okay.
either New Tavarheim or the other one, which I should have been looking up while I was talking. But that would be a silly thing to
Yeah.
do. Mongheim.
Monheim.
Mongheim would be the other city.
Okay.
So those two cities are the biggest commerce cities, the biggest standing military cities. One of
Right.
the reasons there's so much tension between them is because they both have significant militaries. And then as far as why your mother had the run-in with the Draugr, the undead horde, is most likely because she would have been sent to Temning Norden at some point, because the Draugr hordes don't frequently make it far enough south to really hit many of the other
Right.
cities. There is always the hyper-isolated city of Hafnaheim, but they don't have a huge military.
Okay.
They're not a big military place. They are just isolationist,
Okay.
which is why they have all the walls.
Right. So I do like the idea of Levi being a kid who has never really left his hometown, and being amazed by a world that is so expansive and new to him. So it's a potential option that the isolationist city could actually work for that.
That would still work. They are pretty far south. You don't get many encroaching forces from the south, but this could be one of the few exceptions. And at that point, that would be a great position right up on the wall. That would be hyper isolationist, so
Yep.
everything would still be pretty darn new to you. That works for your mother's story. That works for your father's story. That works across the board.
Yeah, I do actually like the idea that the standing military is not that serious, given the sense that Levi was a bad soldier in the sense that he probably wasn't able to even hurt anything because he was bad. He was a bad soldier, but they kept him on board anyway because they need bodies. Um, Whereas, like, if I were in Tamning, what is it? Tamning Norden? Is that
Tamning Norden, yes.
Tamning Norden? If I was in Tamning Norden, that would be, if I was as bad with a spear as I've described to be, I would not be there.
Fair enough, fair
If
enough.
that made sense.
Absolutely.
So, in a sense, abandoning post would make sense in a city that doesn't have like a large enough military to really send people after me. And it gives me the opportunity to amass enough money that I can basically pay for my sins once I get back, which is kind of Levi's idea.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're not going to find Hafnaheim soldiers around the world
No.
looking for you or anything.
No.
You're not going to stumble into one in Sparrow's Rest.
Right. Maybe the other cities would have a division that would be able to find, you know, people that abandon post. But yeah, it doesn't sound like that city. So what is that? You said Monheim? Is that correct? Or
Hafnaheim is the
Hafnaheim.
isolationist one. Hafnaheim.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that sounds good.
You would know, being from Hafnaheim, that it translates in Svarka to the Forsaken City or the home of the Forsaken.
The
And you're used to some pretty rough winters. This world experiences a 10-month year, and 8 out of 10 months it is cold enough in Hafnaheim for the lake that you're on to freeze over.
Okay. There you go. Yeah, that's cool. And reminds me of what is it? The Forgotten City poem.
Ohio?
Oh yeah. That's true. No, yeah, cool. That works for me.
Awesome. So, since you've left Hafnaheim, what have you been up to? We're going to all be meeting in Sparrow's Rest to begin the campaign.
Okay.
That wasn't originally the plan, but everyone else in the campaign so far has ties to Sparrow's Rest, so we're just rolling with it.
So I think that it would make sense that, okay, I'm setting off on my own. I'm deserting my post. Sparrow's Rest, so like, if I'm understanding the math correctly, is it on the east side of the map, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that is the city of Spires on the east side, so
Okay.
it is the closest to Hafnaheim.
Right. And so, yeah, then that would make sense for me just to be like, I'm assuming magic users have money, right?
It is a very well-to-do city.
Okay. So it would make sense for me, who's like not great at fighting, but who might be able to talk my way into a position where I can, you know, be around people that just are relatively safe and just need guards. You know, it's like, hey, I can use a shield. I'd probably just go there for the sake of money. Plus, my mother being a magic user, I haven't decided like what kind, sorcerer, like wizard, anything like that. That's maybe something we could discuss at a later point, but maybe it's just not relevant. But it made sense where it's like, okay, I'm outside of the city. This is the first time I get to really ask about some of the stuff. So, you know, objective 1, find work, find money. Yeah, gonna go to the City of Spires. City of Spires is also a good first place of inquiry where I might be able to find out something about my mother, if I have the time.
Absolutely. Cool. In that case, as one last thing that I'm going to give to you before we do our final roll-up of stats, is You will have received from your father, when you joined the guard,
Mm-hmm.
a sort of medallion from your father, a family heirloom.
Okay.
It depicts a godly figure, a woman on one side and a man on the other. Maybe with some religion checks and things you'd be able to figure out who they are, but from your personal knowledge, you know nothing about it, and it seems old.
Okay. After doing character creation, can we make one of those rolls?
I would love for to.
Cool. That sounds good. All right.
So in that case, if there's nothing else you have for me, I would love for you to roll up your 6 core stats.
So, are we going to follow up on that Holy Avenger, or is that?
We'll see. We'll see about it.
All right. Sounds good. Play, The Price is Right music or something here as I get my dice.
No, that's copyrighted. How long does it take you to find dice? I see actually about 20 D&D source books behind you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How do you not have dice just in your hand to begin with?
I have this set of dice that's in front of me, but I realized, oh wait, we are actually rolling, oh, I almost spilled all of the dice onto my lap. It was that close. But I
Amazing
saved it.
ASMR, a horrible problem for you though.
Absolutely. Just okay. Let's see. I'm gonna need good D6s. Good D6s. Let's do these two. This one tends to do well for me. Right? I get to hand pick my D6s for this, right? That are just gonna roll 6s for me. That's how
Feels
this
like
works,
cheating,
right?
but I'll allow it.
Okay. That sounds good. Then I'll pick up this six-sided dice. It's a 6. Oh my god, every time. All right. I got my 4d6. I am ready when you are.
I'm not stopping you.
Okay. And now, is this that I'm going to roll this 6 times? Or is this and then I get to assign those numbers? Or
That is correct.
Okay, and it's going to be 46 drop 1?
That is also correct.
All right,
yeah.
cool.
You know me.
Oh,
You know
yeah,
how
I know you. It's all good. For people that may not know, Tony and I are friends in real life, so...
well, he's friends with me. I don't know about the other way
that's
around.
fair. Oh, man, this first roll? Crazy.
Uh-huh.
10.
Oh, my gosh. I've never seen such a roll.
It's legitimately insane. That one was better, 16. I dropped a 1. That one is fine. Okay, we've got 11, 13.
That's not bad.
No, that's not bad. This is turning out okay so far, but I want 3 6s. That is another 10.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to have god stats here.
That's good, because 2 players do.
All right.
And I would like the party to be...
That one was not a good roll. That was another 10. All right, so 3 10s, a 16, a 13, no negatives, so that's good.
That's good.
Okay, that's another good one, so 15. Okay, so 3 very mediocre stats, and then a good stat, and then 2 very good stats. That seems good.
All right.
Let's see, so that's 15. Just wanted to make sure. And then there's a +1 to all of that, so that's nice.
Yeah, exactly. Very good, because, humans.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do... My end stats end up being... Strength is going to be 11. Dexterity is going to be 14. Constitution is 16. Intelligence is 11. Wisdom is 11. Charisma is 17.
Cool. In that case, I believe that is everything for Levi. Oh, does Levi have a last name?
So I think at some point in our discussions, just kind of discussing concepts, I don't know if this ever came to fruition.
It did not end up anywhere in the world.
Okay.
I know exactly what you're referring to. And in order to not confuse the listener, I will just call it right here and say no.
Okay. So, um, man, now I want to give context. Now I'm wondering if, basically thinking like, hey, maybe he doesn't have a last name. Maybe it's like your profession.
Okay, should I
Become-
should I bring it into the
I,
world? Should I
I
do
think it'd
it?
be interesting.
I'm fine with
Look,
it. Okay, in that case, brand new Hafnaheim lore.
again, Hafnaheim is very isolationist.
Lore drop in Hafnaheim right
Yeah,
now.
so Hafnaheim is very isolationist, and because of that, the inner circles and societies that it's part of, understanding your connections and what people do and stuff is their last names. And so therefore, someone's profession and skill and specialty is going to be their last name. So that being said, I am Levi. My dad would be Smith something, but and that's something I should probably figure out, like an actual name. It's Levi,
Yeah.
just like pop,
Jimmy Smith.
but like last name Smith. But for me, it hasn't been anything yet because even being a guardsman, that hasn't worked out very well. So it's like I can't use that as a title. So right now it's just Levi.
Yeah, so basically what John here is referring to is I had a concept before, wasn't too sure about it, and it seems like we want it for flavor, so I am retroactively adding it back into the lore. In Hafnaheim, you are born without a last name. You do not take your parents' last name. When you find your calling in life, your career, your industry, so not necessarily your first job, but what you decide, this is what I do for my life, you take that profession and make it your last name. So you'll find often married couples don't even have the same last name because they don't do the same thing. Now, sometimes, of course, they get into the industry together, the mom and pop run a bake shop, so they're both Jim and Jen Baker.
Mhm.
But in this scenario, most likely your mother's last name was Shield Bearer or Guardsman
What's
or
the
whatever.
undead?
Draugr.
The Draugr, and then the undead realm is called what again? It's
Dowdheim.
Dowd. So what if hang on, let me cook. So I'm looking up language. I'm just trying to throw this at you, right? I don't know what this is going to create, but I've pulled up an Icelandic translator.
Oh, those never work. I'm curious what you
Oh
get.
yeah. Let's see. So we're going to let's see, translate from English. If I could spell English.
Off to a terrible start.
Okay. I'm going to put in the word purify. I'm going to have to listen to how this is pronounced. Rain shadow. Rain shadow.
Can you spell that for me?
I'm going to send it to you. It is HREINSA vowel. Icelandic vowel. You. So what?
Oh, cool.
What about It could be something like Dowdrain, which sounds like dead rain, which is so metal. But I like the idea that my mom was also like actually awesome.
Absolutely.
So, oh, and Rain Shadow. It does sound like Rain Shadow. So it could just be, purify Rain Shadow, because like her job was to defend.
A purifier, yeah.
I actually kind of like that. Like that, it's like if someone were to ask, it's like, oh yeah, my mother was, Rain Shadow, and it's like, oh, like we might know that. Like someone who does know that is like, oh hey, like that's cool.
Absolutely. No, I like that a lot. And just to give you an idea, the letter in question is halfway between, it's used to represent sometimes a T, sometimes a TH, and sometimes a D. For example, it is the letter used in the spelling of Odin.
Okay. Yeah.
A similar equivalent to the letter is also used in Thor. It's not actually the same letter because they use a different letter depending upon whether it's the first letter in a
Yeah.
word or midway / the end of a word. But there you go. So in that context, yeah, I'd probably pronounce a lot more like a D. So
Okay.
yeah, Rain Shadow.
Yeah. I will probably just end up saying rain shadow.
That's fine.
Shadow. Rain shadow. Yeah. But actually, it sounds really close to that. So that's cool. And
Absolutely.
metal as hell.
Absolutely. As all good Norse-inspired things should be.
Yes.
Cool. In that case, I think that is everything for now. I am
Amazing.
good to wrap up if you
I'm
are.
good. Yeah. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
All right. So in that case, I will say arrivederci, do svidania, and annyeong to all of our wonderful listeners. Would you like to say goodbye, John?
Bye.